This is today's business leaders. Actionable advice from real-world professionals. And now here's your host, Gabe Arnold.
So on today's show, we have Wally Carmichael from menofabundance.com. He has a podcast, a book, a bunch of other amazing resources. He's been through a lot in life and learned a lot. And we were chatting just before we went live here about how we're pretty similar. We like to just say it how it is and no bullshit, get straight to the point. And if you want fluffy, feel-good advice that doesn't work, this may not be the show for you. But welcome.
Absolutely, man. Because I care less. I care less about your feelings and more about your well-being. So,
yeah, exactly. So good to have you back, Wally. I always enjoy our time. So thanks for hanging out.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to dive into something specific because in the last time you were on, like we were chatting a little bit ago, it was in October. So it's been 6 months or so now. The last time around, we kind of heard your story from the entrepreneurial perspective, and you really shared a lot of great lessons. But you mentioned something before you came on that episode that really intrigued me that I wanted to kind of do a deep dive on today, where, I ask people just to kind of understand where they're at before they come on the show. I say, what do you think the keys to success are? And you said, same with anything we do, start with the mindset of abundance. And that's what you said. And I think I understand abundance, just to be honest. I was having a conversation yesterday with somebody, and they're like, they misunderstood me, but they're like, you sound pretty complacent. Like you have everything you want. You're happy. Like, why would you even work on anything? And it was a misunderstanding of in the moment, but where I was really trying to share with them is like, I have a wonderful life. I have everything I need. I'm happy. I'm wealthy, because wealth to me is happiness in relationships, and money is usually somewhere in there, but that's not the top definition of wealth to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I understand it, but I don't really know if I have a framework or the construct to explain it. And then I also think for some people, like, well, what do you mean? Like, start with a mindset of abundance. So that's where I wanted to start off today and just kind of get your knowledge and insight on what that means, and go from there. So teach us.
Well, let's start out by saying I'm on my journey, brother. And I started this, I guess you could call it, abundance journey some 4 years ago or so. And you heard my story from before, me sitting on the beach and all that cool stuff. But, to really kind of answer your question, I'm in a great place in my life. And I could literally not do anything else to bring more income into my life, and I'd be fine.
Yeah.
And perfectly fine. I can still travel, still go to Disney, still hang out, do the things I enjoy doing, take my kid to school, all that kind of stuff. So that to me is just the beginning. But I'm all about, as I said, I always say, improving your foxhole. It's an Army term, military term, always improve your foxhole. And the reason why a soldier, Marine, whatever, always has to continue improving the foxhole is because you're sitting in that foxhole and you're either an offense or defense. Either way, you're waiting on something to happen. And while you're waiting on something to happen, your mind is idle.
Yeah.
And you start thinking about crap, and you start it starts messing with your mind, and you start taking all of this information from other sources and everything. And as long as you're continuously fortifying your foxhole, putting sandbags here, putting a cover, making nice holes so you can see through and all this kind of stuff, you're staying active and you're being productive. Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm at in my life. I will not, the whole term retirement doesn't make sense to me. I'm retired from the military, but the whole idea of not doing anything, not adding value to other people in some way, shape, or form, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
So the way I'm doing that now is through basically similar to what you're doing. I'm a business and life strategist, and that's what I enjoy doing. But I also like to volunteer at my son's school. I also like to go do other things in the community. So it's important to stay active in those roles and give your abundance, because part of being an abundant leader is to give to others in time, treasures, or talents. So I don't know if that completely answers your question, and that would have been the answer to give to the gentleman or the individual you was talking to yesterday, but that's my answer.
Yeah, no, I like that, because I would agree. I'm very fortunate. I'm in a really great place. I can go weeks without working. which is not where I was in years past. So
Yeah.
so I'm just super grateful for that. That doesn't come, from nothing. It comes from being really fortunate. A lot of generous people have helped me get where I am. And, I've worked hard. I mean, there's a lot of components to that. But yeah, it's like I do get to kind of come and go as I want and do what I want and spend more time with my family, which is really important. And then on the flip side, I have a goal that I will hit of doing $1 billion a year in revenue by the time I'm 60. And that's a few years out, but I'm going to get there. And like, it ties in with what you said, like always improving your foxhole, like always being active, doing something. I'll never retire. I mean, I think that's insane. Will I work less or travel more or do what I want even more? Absolutely. But I'm going to work until the day I die, because I think that work is really important. And a friend of mine said this on a podcast the other day, really hit home with me. Brandon Poland, who's the CEO of Lady Boss. And he said, they do like 45 million a year. And when I met him 5 years ago, they were doing like 100,000 a year. So it's a pretty fast jump. And he said, there's no rest without work. I was like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow, that's a really succinct way of putting it. Like, and he was saying like, and rest is like vacationing and enjoying your time and doing what you want to do. And he's like, there's no rest without work. I was like, holy cow, that's something that will stick with me forever. And
Well, think about it. I mean, it's exactly the same. There's no happiness without adversity.
yeah,
If you don't know adversity, you can't know happiness. You don't know the difference. So it makes perfect sense.
yeah. So I think there's a lot here that's worth digging into. And so I know you coach people and you speak and you have the podcast and you have the book and, you're out there just like I am. But when you sit down with somebody one-on-one and they're struggling in their business, which means they're struggling personally, because I heard this the other day, it was great too. They said all business problems are personal problems. Like, yeah, that's true too. So like, obviously those are a crossover when you have those conversations, but how does somebody go from struggling to living a life of abundance that you have, that I have now? And it didn't happen by accident. And like you said, we've faced adversity, but how do people start to understand what abundance is and how to get there?
Everybody's at a different place in their journey, but it really starts with mindset and perspective. Like you said, it's not abundance to me is not about money.
Mm-hmm.
It's about resources, but resources in the form of your connections, your relationships, your spiritual connections, your health, the whole bit, family, faith, finances, and fitness, all that together, plus paying it forward to other people.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on let's take a typical scenario where the problem is, and you know this as well as I do, a lot of businesses, they're doing everything that their peers are doing, that they're, a chiropractor on this corner is doing the same thing as a chiropractor on the other corner. Because that's what they were taught in school. They're taught how to be a chiropractor. They're not taught how to be a business owner.
Yeah.
Right. So all they're doing is mimicking what they see everybody else doing because it seems to be working for them. So it should work for me too. I was at a networking event the other day, just last week. And this guy stood up who was one of the speakers. And he says, 4 years ago, I started this business. And today it's $55 million in revenue. But I'm just as broke as I was 5-6 years ago.
Holy shit.
And I'm shaking. And as he's telling his story, it's making sense to me because what he did was he went around, him and his team, literally traveled the world to find out how to create this particular product, the technical side of it, how to make this product. And he's got an amazing freaking product, obviously 55 million in revenue, right?
Yeah.
But he's broke because he never paid attention to the business acumen, the business side of it. And my thing is, I tell people all the time, just because you're great at baking pies or whatever the case may be, doesn't mean you're going to be great at business. It's a completely different mindset, completely different skill set. Yeah. So the first thing I do, and when we're talking about business in general, if we're not talking about business, we're just talking about mindset.
Right.
But if we're talking about business and mindset, then we're talking about the business strategies as well as the mindset, but not just the mindset of the business owner, but also all the employees, if there are any. I can walk through, I can talk to the business owner, then I can walk through the business and find pretty much the same mindset because it trickles down.
Yeah.
So you've got to change that culture. And you first have to realize that what are you doing in your business? You're providing a service.
Mm-hmm.
First and foremost, that's what you want to do. You're providing a service. And by the way, the business is not only providing a service to customers, it's providing a service to you as the business owner. It's what, like you said earlier, you can't have freedom without doing the work.
Yeah.
But you have to do the right work.
Right.
There's a lot to unpack there, man, because there's so much involved in all of that. But it's just about having the conversation and listening. And I do a lot of listening, and I hear the words that are coming out of their mouth, and I hear scarcity phrases. I hear scarcity words, and, talking about competition, and then this guy down here and that guy down there. And I'm like, I kind of nonchalantly change their verbiage over the course of time the more I work with them.
Yeah, I think you're hitting on some really key things here, because it is the language that we use is huge, because then that drives decisions and attitudes. And when you're outwardly focused in the wrong way, looking at your competitors or what somebody else has or what I don't have, then you're not focused on service, like you said. And that's really the core. I don't think I fully realized this till this moment, but I think the core shift that I made 4 years ago, almost 4 years ago, was, I'm just going to focus on how can I serve my customers? How can I serve my team? Like, if I just completely focus on how can I serve them at the highest level, then everything else will work out. And that helped me shift from being in scarcity mindset, or how much money can I make off this person or this project or whatever, to what's really best for them. And then it actually led to me to be able to be more particular about who I work with, because I can say, do I want to serve Wally? Like, are you somebody I actually want to work with? Like, it came full circle to be productive in a positively selfish way, because there are things we need to be selfish about to be successful, and and serve people. You can't not take care of yourself for years on end and serve anybody. Like, that'll kill you and hurt everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that was a huge cultural shift. And then another piece for me was, like, really, as I shifted to saying, like, who can I serve and how can I serve my team and make their life better, I consciously chose more gratitude, but I also think it just naturally created more gratitude, because I was focusing on what I think is the highest value activity or thing or whatever, and that's relationships. Like, and I finally got to the point of clarity where I was able to say, relationships matter to me more than money. And it's kind of simple, obvious, but when it really becomes a true core value, and then you act upon that and you live that out, then it's easy to make decisions, because if something bad happens or you lose some money or something doesn't go the way you want, you can think, okay, this relationship is more important to me than the money or the other stuff involved. And that was a big shift for me.
Yeah, that's super important. I mean, the relationships ultimately are going to pay off dividends for sure, but it does go full circle. As soon as I started having more gratitude and being more grateful for what I had in my life, so much more started coming into my life in the form of relationships, connections, opportunities, and yes, money. Mm-hmm. Look, I tell people all the time, it's the circle, but don't expect it to happen. That's where people start. If I'm going to go help somebody on the street, or I'm going to go do something for somebody in the next 5 days, this better happen, because I'm freaking at my wit's end. If this doesn't work out for me, then, I'm screwed. It just doesn't work that way, man. That's a scarcity mindset, by the way. You're operating, you're doing something good, and you're paying it forward, but you're doing it with a scarcity mindset, and you just got to give freely.
Yeah. And that's where it gets screwed up. If you make it all transactional, like, oh, I'm going to help Wally out, but I expect him to help me out right afterward. Or, if you just give that way, then you're not actually creating value, because I think the energy with which we do things, or the intention with which we do things, is the reverberations, of that are felt throughout the world and throughout your life. Yeah. And if it's all shallow, like, oh, if I do somebody a favor, they'll do me a favor, then that's, everybody can tell, or however that happens, like, everybody knows, or the universe knows, God, whoever you want to blame it on, they know what's up, and then it doesn't work.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's true. And the thing is, I mean, I have a background in, studying cultures and stuff like that. I was equal opportunity advisor in the Army, and I studied a lot of different cultures to understand. And I lived in Hawaii for 10 years. So many different cultures come through there. And some cultures do have a this for that mentality. It's built into the culture. I mean, literally, if somebody gives me something, it's basically like I have to give them something back. Maybe it's not expected from the other person. It's just the way it is. But, your culture. But when we're talking about divine intervention and we're talking about paying it forward, then it's a whole different language.
Yeah. And where do you think like the scarcity mindset comes from for people? Because like for me, when I understand the root cause of things, it's easier to go, oh, maybe I can shift that change, or maybe there's something I didn't deal with, or like, where do you think that comes from for most people, or some of the time? I don't know.
I think it's just from upbringing. I think it comes from childhood. I mean, you got the old stories of, the parents saying, what do you think money grows on trees, or, those people that have all the money, they're must be doing something wrong or doing something against somebody else or taking, it's not always about many different areas. And I don't focus as much on where it came from. I do a little bit because, I play a little bit with, NLP, neuro linguistic programming, because where you're at today does have something to do with that, and you can change the neurons. I mean, physically. That's why I stand up a lot of times when I have these conversations, because it just pumps me up.
Yeah.
You change your physiology, you change your mindset immediately. But what I really try to focus more on is the language that they're using, and how we can make that switch, how we can start making that change. And it doesn't happen overnight. It's just like going to the gym. It's just like losing a couple extra pounds. You want to lose a scarcity mindset, you have to do a few things consistently. You have to journal. And you have to correct your terminology. You have to put certain words. I have sticky notes with little terms on them that I have in front of me at all times. I'm on my journey too, just like everybody else.
Yeah.
And I still find myself falling back into an old pattern, and I'll have to re-engage that. So, it just comes from all kinds of different sources. I mean, you can blame media, you can blame now social media, you can blame the church, you can blame your parents, your coworkers. I mean, my goodness gracious, for anybody who's trying to build a business and working full time, and they're going to work every day and hearing all the negativity around them all day. I mean, goodness, just if you can sit with headphones in your ears and, listen to a podcast or something. I mean, God, you just got to reprogram your mind, man, and your habits and your physiology.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's crazy how it's taken me a long time to learn this, but it's crazy how just like programming that we've created or adopted or been given or whatever will just run in the background nonstop until you uncover it. And then when you do uncover it, you can just change what you say, what you think, what you write down, and it changes your whole mindset. And then the next level realization after you reprogram some of that negativity into positivity is the realization that you can assign any meaning you want to something that happened. And that's something I've been exploring a lot in the last 6 months is, if I look at this situation that happened when I was a kid, or if I look at this business thing, or, I look at all these things that have happened, I can choose bitterness about it. Like I can be really upset about it, or I can choose to feel hurt still, or I can choose to feel like somebody ripped me off, or like whatever negativity, or I can choose to believe that it was beneficial and helpful. And when you do that, like you shed a ton of weight, because you don't have all these little compartments in your brain that are reserved for hating or hurting or being upset.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as long as somebody else is the problem, then you never have control over the change, over the solution. Never. Because it's the other person that has to release you for whatever that is to move forward. Yeah. And like you said, as soon as you say, whatever it is, maybe they did this to me, but somehow, some way, it was as a result of something that I said or did. So I need to correct that. And as soon as you make that, the weight comes off and you can just move forward.
Yeah.
I'll figure out how to do that.
Yeah. It takes some time and thought and help usually. Because the other thing I realized more and more, which I mean, even I think 2 or 3 years ago, I would have never understood this or recommended, but like, I don't think that you can go very fast or grow very fast if you don't have a coach. Like if you don't have
100%.
if you don't have somebody to run stuff by, if you don't have some mentor influence, like then you're just running around like crazy because you can't see what you're doing. We can only see what we're doing at some level, and then we're generally disillusioned about, or we're misinformed about it too. Like we assume we're doing something right, and everybody can give you coaching and perspective, but it's nice to have somebody that's a little farther down the road, or maybe knows you really well, or can sit there and hold up a mirror and say, is this really what you wanted to do?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you got to look at the whole other side of that too, because sometimes I've been caught up in this as well. I'm like, man, that dude's got it going on. I mean, I just want to live that guy's life.
Yeah.
And we'll put one out there that's, we might have had this conversation before, but we'll put one out there that's really still kind of front of mind, is Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah.
He traveled the world eating food, some crazy food, meeting some amazing people. And I'm like, that would be freaking amazing. I want the dude's life. But the reality was I wanted that part of his life. I didn't want the rest of it.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful. I say that because you got to be careful who you get coaching from, and realize that they're truly, what they have is truly what you want.
Yeah.
The way that you want it, right? You can get parts of that. But I totally agree with you. Anytime that I've done anything significant that really put me leaps and bounds from where I was at a couple weeks, couple months, couple years later, there was always a coach or a mentor involved, or at least a mastermind group.
Yeah.
Every single time. Anytime I struggled with that and probably got somewhere where I didn't want to end up, I was trying to go up by myself.
Yeah.
Every time. And I suspect everybody else is the same way.
Yeah, you cannot go as fast as you could if you have the right team around you, that's for sure. And I also really like what you said, which I want to highlight, is you should take time to really vet and think through and observe, the people that you are considering to have coach you, because there's plenty of people that, are con artists, and there's plenty of people that have huge parts of their life that you don't want to have anything to do with. Like you mentioned, I mean, that's so sad that like he looks like he had it all together and it didn't work out. Like, he clearly wasn't happy.
Well, and the other thing is to add to that as well is you don't want to take on the scarcity mindset to the point to where you're going to be suspicious of everybody.
Right.
Be suspicious just to the point to where you're going to do your due diligence and you're going to check out you're going to get to know the person. Right. Or the group or whatever. Because I've gotten into mastermind groups that I thought would be amazing, and it just turned out not to be I just didn't resonate with the group.
Right.
But that didn't mean that there's anything wrong with the group. It just wasn't the group for me. I found other groups. So don't have the scarcity mindset to the point to where you're just not going to trust anybody, because that's definitely not going to get you. That's going to get you nowhere fast, or keep you where you're at.
Yeah. How have you, that's something I've had to work on balancing and figuring out, because I've been on both extremes, I feel like, before. How have you worked that out for yourself, where you figure out how to do enough due diligence, but not be suspect of everybody? Like, has there been any process, or were there any specific cases where you kind of learned along the way, or what's that been like?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so much easier today. I mean, anybody well, first off, if somebody's contacting me to give me some sort of, you get them, we're going to blow your Instagram, followers up to 1 million. But I go look at their Instagram and I go look at their LinkedIn, Twitter, so on and so forth. And there's crickets. There's like nobody there. I'm like, how the hell are you going to do that if you haven't done it for yourself? So that's obvious, right? But then let's say, for instance, there were these young kids I saw their videos on Facebook and stuff like that. And one of the guys that was connected with these guys, I knew him. We were a mutual connection. And so he's like, you got to follow these guys and you got to get on the phone with this guy. And I'm like, these young punks, right, are here trying to say that they're going to coach this, that, and the other. And I'm like, they're like in their mid-20s. To me, it looks like, anyway. And I'm like, what the hell these kids got to teach me? So I get to looking at them and stuff like that. And I said, what the hell? What I got to lose? I get on the phone with one of them. Holy cow. The dude knew, he blew my mind with the information that he was sharing. I was like, oh, this guy's speaking my language, man. He knows what he's doing. He's not just selling the game.
Right.
And so, you just got to figure out the way for you, but there's so many ways. There's LinkedIn. Just look at all those social media. If you Google them, and there's crickets, there's nothing, then be
Mhm.
suspicious.
Yeah.
But if you find them that they've been on, the Today's Business Leaders podcast, they've been on, ABC, they've been on the news. I mean, you can actually verify this stuff. Then, move forward. Still move forward cautiously. Don't give up $1 million for something. Step in lightly if if that's possible. Because one thing I hear all the time is people say, I'm not going to trust this guy or this group because I got burned doing this, that, and the other. I take that with a grain of salt as well,
Mhm.
because anything that we're doing here, I can coach anybody and they can turn around and say, Wally sucks. His program sucks. His
Right.
course sucks. But I can't rebuttal that with the groups that he's saying that in, because the guy never did a dang thing. He never logged into the site. He,
Right.
he never checked in with me. He missed multiple calls that we were supposed to be on.
Yeah.
And he's going to bash me because of his inactive, his
Right.
being inactive. So, that stuff happens too. So be careful of bad testimonies.
Yeah. You're totally right. When there's a bad testimony, dig into that person and see what their track record is with success too.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. It's I think that it's taken me time to like hone my intuition a little bit more to make better decisions, and and to trust it. And then also, I like what you just said, which I'm learning to do more effectively and more consistently, is do a smaller test. Like, do something small. Like, don't give them 10 grand day one, or 100 grand or whatever the big number is. Like, try it at the few $100 level, or see what an hour does, or do, see what results, or, what you get out of the initial, the initial interaction. Because over time, you'll see who somebody is. Because if there is an issue, within a few interactions, you'll be able to tell if you're paying attention. So
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I think about, what courses that I've purchased and mentors and coaches and whatnot that I've paid for, that I've brought on.
mm-hmm.
It's never been somebody that I just saw an ad on Facebook.
Yeah.
Ever. It's always been somebody that I either knew and had followed for a while, or was somebody like you who said, hey, Wally, I know you need help in this area. Go check this dude out.
Right.
I'll take that. And now I may make that first purchase, but
mm-hmm.
chances are I'm going to get some other person. It's going to take a while.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely takes time. So let's take kind of the closing part, end of the show here, and maybe just catch us up on what you're working on and what you're excited about, and where people can find you and hang out with you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So, hey, as far as, like I said, I dig my lifestyle, and I'll never fully retire, but I don't do nearly as much as I used to.
Mm-hmm.
I can spend more time doing what I want to do, but I've been doing, the one-on-one training is great. I'm very selective about who I do one-on-one training with. And I'm finding a lot of business owners don't feel comfortable moving forward, or even can't move forward with that investment. I use that term lightly only because if they did, basically my service would be free.
Right.
But once they start working with me, but I've set up a group program, and I've got this group program that I'm literally just getting ready to launch. I just finished up connecting the pay thing and all that stuff today. So I'm getting ready to launch this thing and going to start sharing it with my list specifically, because it's always easier to launch out to the people who have already purchased something from you, primarily purchased my book
mm-hmm.
or anything else. And I'm only going to be working with 10 people in the group at a time. Mm-hmm. And I do that partially because it doesn't take up much of my time anyway, because it's only a weekly call, a Zoom call,
right,
and a workbook and all that kind of stuff. But they're going to be working together as well. I'm going to partner them up, individual, all different industries. I'm not going to have any one of the same industry, two of the same industry in the group ever. So I'm excited about that because, one thing that I teach business owners is you have to have multiple, at least 2 to 3 levels of entry,
mm-hmm.
Different products and stuff. Right. And while sometimes I do this with everybody, I like the group setting because some people just work better in groups, and it's a much lower price point that people can afford, and they're going to increase profits right away because one thing, like I was telling that story earlier about the guy, it's a quote that I had seen recently that said, revenue feeds your ego, profits feed your family.
I like
Oh.
that, man. I've lived that one.
And that's kind of yeah. So that's kind of that's how I move forward is we're going to build your profits because and the real reason why I'm so passionate about this is because I'm going to be able to help more people because these business owners are so stressed out. And one of my coaches, Carl Bryan, who actually was in the top 12 of top business coaches in the United States last year. Tony Robbins is number one. And he, his brother committed suicide due to a failed business. And that's why he does what he does. And for me personally, it's just so the continued stress in a business at that level, it causes disease. Disease causes disease over a period of time. And if it's not just against the individual, the family, the spouse's hair's falling out. I mean, it's serious with these businesses, and they're trying to provide an amazing service in the community. So I want them making profits. I want to relieve the stress in the business and relieve the stress in the family and bring the family back together. And I can only handle so many people at a time. I think the group is going to help it out quite a bit.
Very cool. We'll shoot that over because I'd love to include that in the show notes, and that's definitely sounds amazing. So, and I totally agree. I love that line you said, revenue feeds ego and profit feeds your family.
Yeah.
If I would have known that years ago.
But that's the model that so many people. The funny thing about that same guy is he proceeded to tell his story, and he even told the other entrepreneurs and business owners and soon to be business owners thinking about it anyway, maybe not after his statement, to be prepared for that same fate. I'm like, why the heck would anybody want to do that? But it's the truth for most businesses for years. Yeah. And it just shouldn't be.
Yeah. We get caught up in activity and we don't focus on value. And then that affects profits on all sides. Because if we really provide incredible value, then our clients gain profit and value out of it. And we gain profit and value.
Yeah, it goes so much deeper than that, though. It goes into the accounting. Where's the money going? Yeah. Another thing that I hear, and I actually learned this from Profit First.
Yeah.
Book is now I lost my train of thought because I was thinking of Profit First. It's an amazing book, but the fact of the matter is so many businesses they think they got to grow. Yeah. And then eventually I'm going to be able to feed the family. And a lot of people say you can either grow or you can profit, but you can't do both. And like the author says, bullshit.
Yeah.
You can have both, and you should have both. Otherwise, what's the point?
Right. Yeah. And if you start off with that foundational incorrect mindset of, I just need to get revenue, get customers, and that's all you're focused on, then you could, like you mentioned that person earlier, you could be doing millions and millions of dollars a year and have no money.
Mm-hmm. And it happens all the time.
And then you're like, why the hell am I doing this? This is horrible. Yeah,
I talk to business owners and they're like, Wally, I can't handle, I'll call up a business or something that I know I can help out because I check out their website. I see their ad in the yellow pages or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I do call people because I want to help and I can see where I can help. And they're like, I can't handle any more clients. I'm, a fencing company or whatever, HVAC. And I'm like, okay, so how about your profits? Because you're paying for Google ads. I can see your ad up here and I know you're paying dearly for that.
Yeah.
So you can't handle more clients, but you're paying for advertisement. How are your profits? And they're like, I'm not making nearly the money I should be. I thought I would be making at this point. I said, well, let's talk. Let's figure this out. We can do
flexible.
That. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
What's that?
That they could say, yeah. Isn't that crazy? They could, in one breath, say, "I can't take you more business," and at the same time, they're advertising.
Paying, dude. You know how much it costs to get up. I'm talking the paid ones, not the organic stuff, because I can get you at the top of the organic locally. That's easy.
Right.
But you're paying for it,
dude.
But you can't handle any more clients. And what the hell are you paying for ads for?
Yeah, there's so much money on the table inside of businesses.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's
I sit down with most businesses, and that's what the book's about. 45 minutes. I usually say 10 to 50,000 because that's manageable in some people's heads. But
right.
literally, we walk away in the first 20 minutes into six figures
Yeah.
that we found inside their business that they can access in a couple months.
Yeah. That's crazy and very true.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, this has been fun, Wally. It's been great to catch up. And if you shoot over the info for the course, I'd love to share that in the show notes and push that out to everybody. And I'll drop it and if there's a link or anything, feel free to drop it in the comments here after the show. And we'll keep up and have you back on in a few months and see how everything's going. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. I got to get you on my show too, man.
Yeah.
You're living a life of abundance for sure.
Sounds good, man. I appreciate it. Thank
Awesome,
you.
dude. Take care.
You've been listening to Today's Business Leaders with Gabe Arnold. Remember to subscribe on iTunes. For more information, visit todaysbusinessleaders.com.